Yeah. Nah. That's...
You gonna share with the rest of us?
No.
You know, the radio show thing?
Todd, can you start the show?
What? Huh?
Start the show.
Just mind your business. I'm checking my feed. Honestly.
You have a feed?
Well, I guess so. It's something. It's where the things pop up with the thing on my gizmo here. This is Wretched Radio. If that doesn't sound familiar, it's probably because you haven't been in public lately. Have you noticed moms and dads not quite plugged into the kiddos like they once were? You know, we used to go out to a meal. That was a special treat when I was a kid. It was a big deal that we got to go anywhere. Perkins, woo, that was 5-star dining because you got to go to the wishing well to get a little piece of plastic that these days I'm sure some kid is allergic to, so they can't actually give those away. But nevertheless, that was a big deal. And what would we do at that table? We'd sit there and talk. These days, not so much, and it is not merely my observation. More and more people studying the issue of cell phone use, despite the fact that this article was really compiled. It wasn't much of an article. It was more of an assembling of statistics from studies from Ariana Huffington.
Well.
Okay, now that there's only 3 people left listening, we just dropped about 6. Cut down on the size of the wretched audience here. Ariana Huffington, nevertheless, she just cites some studies in an article titled Parenting While Distracted. Mom, Dad, you do with this as you see fit. They had no solution for it whatsoever. Basically, the conclusion was, well, there's just times when you've got to use your cell phone, but you'll figure it out. Hold on. How do you figure it out with your cell phone? How do you manage and balance this thing? Can it ever interrupt your life? Well, of course it can. It's an emergency. It's something urgent. It's something that must be taken care of. You're home with 2 of the kids. The other 2 kids are out and about. You want to check it to make sure that they're okay. That's like, duh. But it's the constant obsession with looking at our phones that is causing more and more kids to be annoyed. They're calling it technofurence. When mom and dad interfere with the family business because they got to be on their technology. You do with this as you see fit, Mom and Dad, but I believe that a Christian can get this thing figured out. This is somebody sent in an email the other day asking about dads working. Frequently these days, a lot of conversations about moms working, having it all, etc. But what about dads who are told, hey, you got to work, you got to sacrifice stuff. You want to get ahead, you want to climb up that corporate ladder, you got to sacrifice stuff. Okay. What are those things? And how much sacrificing do you have to do? The Bible's brilliant. It doesn't say how many hours a man should work because there's different seasons and different circumstances for everybody, and that's a lot of circumstances and seasons. So the Bible gives us principles. The Bible gives a man priorities. For instance, the number 1 priority for the man is not family, his wife. And it's more specific than family, wife, then kids, in that order. And so if the man is focusing on wife, then kids, then it's everything else. What about things like church? It comes behind wife and family. So if you, for instance, are volunteering at church all the time and your kids are complaining and your wife is saying, honey, we never get to see anymore, then the things at church have to go. Look, we love the local church here, but these are God's priorities. If your wife is not happy with the amount of time that you are spending elsewhere, then those things go because she's on top of the list. Obviously, God supersedes all of this. I'm talking about the human relationships and realms that we deal in. Got to go. Now, what about work? Well, work exists so that I can be a fulfilled man, but so that I can provide for my number 1 and my number 2 priorities and give to my number 3 priority, which is my church. It serves a function. It's not who I am, which is why in America it's a funny question. We ask this in the West, don't we? Hey, what's your name? Bob. What do you do for a living, Bob? Boom. First, That's not who we are. It's what we do. In other words, in order to support those other things that are far more of a higher priority. So if your work is getting in the way of your priorities, then you need to work on adjusting your work. Now, please note, I didn't say you've got to quit and immediately find another job. But you need to work toward that end to make sure that your priorities are just that, priorities. Now, what does that have to do with your cell phone? Is your cell phone a priority? I don't think so. It's a tool that should serve many other. I mean, I can't even imagine. Where would you put your phone on your priority list? So if you had to list looking at my phone every day, however many hours that is, and it's probably hours, what priority is that? Why then do we spend so? I'll bet you, I will just bet you, most of us, if not all of us, give or take, some exceptions, no doubt, we spend more time looking at this screen than we do looking into our spouse's eyes every day. Now, there's a problem. That's just an out of whack priority. What do? You figure it out. That's what you do. I don't tell you what to do. You don't tell me what to do in these issues. You got to figure it out. And the Bible gives you that liberty to do so based on priorities. So if you've got kids that are complaining that mom or dad is not focusing on me, they're not engaging with me, and more than that, they're not bonding with me, you should drop that thing like a hot potato, because it's just not nearly as important. Because the Bible gives me these priorities. The world can't do it. Hunter College and the Graduate Center at the City University of New York study creating a digital disruption version of the still face paradigm. It's a phenomenon dating back to 1975, the still face paradigm. Remember, we learn from secular psychologists to a degree as they observe, that's all. When developmental psychologist Edward Tronick showed that after a few minutes of interaction with an expressionless mother, an infant rapidly sobers, grows wary, and orients his face and body away from his mother with a withdrawn, hopeless facial expression. This is why bonding is so important. So, Mom, if you're carrying your baby and you're staring at an electronic device and not into the eyes of your child, priorities. Bond with your kid. Let's put it down. Look, can it ever interrupt? I said that already. You can carry a baby and deal with the thing that you've been waiting for, or the phone call, or the kids are texting. Got it. But if it's keeping you away from this gorgeous act that God created, where a baby that's why your arm was made that way. Lots of other reasons. You couldn't eat. If your elbow were put like 3 inches lower or 3 inches higher, we'd have to feed each other. Nevertheless, I believe that it was invented that way just perfectly to hold a baby. And then you get to stare in that little baby's eyes, and guess what happens? They start to trust, and they realize I'm cared for, and this person is good to me. You don't do it, the baby grows wary, turning body, orienting face away from the mother, withdrawn, sobering up. That's a crucial time. Phone shouldn't interrupt that. It's not that the mother is absent. She's there, but not there. It's an almost perfect description of what seems to be what screens do to human interaction. And as the researchers found in the updated digital version, the results the same. While moms are on their devices, the infants were more distressed, explored their environment less, and experienced lower emotional recovery when mothers put the screens down. Results like that suggest maternal withdrawal and unresponsiveness. That's what they're exhibiting. The mobile device use can have a negative impact on infant social, emotional functioning, and parent-child interactions. I don't know what you're doing when you're holding your baby, but if your baby determines Mom cares more about that thing than me, you're making a very bad choice. You're making a lifelong bad choice for that child. That bonding time, it is so crucial. Another study, how it affects the relationships. This is the Department of Pediatrics at Boston Medical Center observed caregivers and children at 15 fast food restaurants in the Boston neighborhood. Okay, granted, this is observational stuff. Caregivers absorbed in devices frequently ignored the child's behavior for a while, then reacted with a scolding tone of voice, gave repeated instructions in a somewhat robotic manner, seemed insensitive to the child's expressed needs, or used physical responses. One female adult kicked a child's foot under the table. Another female caregiver pushed a young boy's hands away when he was trying to repeatedly lift her face up from looking at her stupid phone. In general, highly absorbed caregivers often responded harshly to child misbehavior. It's as though they could not tolerate having any interruption to their screen addiction. The Bible gives you your priorities: spouse, kids, church. Where's the phone in that list? I don't see it. I'd put other things like human relationships then, work, neighbors, volunteering, maybe even just some personal downtime. Oh yeah, where by the way, we put God at the top of the list, but where is he in all of that? With Bible study, etc. Priorities. This is Wretched Radio. You know how that social media is. You gotta be plugged in and connected. So would you please like, subscribe, or share this video?